it's very, very simple. What do I need to do to cement my legacy? The answer is very, very simple. And this goes out to all those haters out there that are talking on the internet right now. I'm saying it myself. To cement my legacy, I have to fight the number one contender. I know this. I'm well aware of this. Fighting Dan Henderson is great. Fighting GSP is great. But I've got to fight and beat the number one contender, whether it's Yoel, Jacare, or whoever it will be when the dust has settled in 6 months' time. So that's the first question, the answer to that. And what was the second question?
He said, is there a chance that you would retire, win or lose after this fight?
No, there's not. If I win, I want to fight the number one contender. I do. 100%, that's what I want to do. And for myself, I'm not a pussy. I'm not trying to avoid hard fights. I've had hard fights my entire career, and I don't want that. I even though I know that won't be my legacy, I don't want to give there a possibility of that being my legacy, avoiding the number one contender. So after, if I beat GSP, I definitely want to fight the top guy. And if I lose, I'm sure as hell not having my last fight after such a great career, having my last fight being a loss. So if I lose, I'm for sure. But I'll tell you this, when I beat George, and then I'll fight Yoel or Jacare, whichever one it is, and if I win that, there's a possibility that could be my last fight, because it's getting close. My wife doesn't want me to fight much longer. I've done this for a long time. I have got injuries. I'm covered in scars, and I can't do it forever. I don't want to do it forever. And certainly now with GSP, with this being a big payday, this will enable me to retire a little bit sooner. But I'm still very much a fighter, and I still will continue. So GSP, Romero, maybe one more.
The Countdown with Michael Bisping and Luis J. Gomez. Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on your home for mixed martial arts. Sirius XM Rush 93 and the Sirius.
But I do think it's a fair comparison. The same thing. I think if you were going to say that about Georges St-Pierre, you're going to say it about John Jones, that they are athletes and that they are martial artists and they are obviously very good at what they do, but they might be lacking that fighter spirit or that fighter's heart. I would throw Ronda in that category. You know what it is? A lot of these guys, this is kind of funny. I've seen them all get punched in the face a couple times and really look like they don't like it. I don't think anybody likes being punched in the face, but there's certain guys who just kind of eat it and it doesn't look like that affects them. And there's certain guys when they get hit, you're like, oh, wow, that really affected them.
100%. And that's exactly, Lewis, exactly what I'm referring to when I speak about Georges St-Pierre. He doesn't enjoy that. And of course, as you just said, nobody enjoys getting punched in the face. But there's a part of me that fucking loves that. I love getting down and dirty and just, having a good tear up and a good scrap. And when you're in there, you don't really feel the pain unless you get knocked out or you get kicked in the leg. Those leg kicks, those body kicks, they hurt like hell. But punches in the face, as long as you don't get knocked out, I can take them all day. And I'm not trying to be like, trying to say I'm such a tough guy, because I'm not the only one. There's many of us like that. The UFC's full of them. George isn't one of those. He's a tactician, and that's all well and good as well. But as I'm saying, as you said, you highlighted a few names there. When you see them, you see that look in their eye when they get hit with a good one. They don't want to return fire straight away, or it diminishes their soul a little bit, and they start looking for a way out, or they just want to clinch and things like that. So, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head.
The Countdown with Michael Bisping and Luis J. Gomez. Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on your home for mixed martial arts. Sirius XM Rush 93 and the Sirius XM.
But he's saying the GSP of today would just destroy the GSP of 3 years ago. Bullshit. How does he even know that? How does he know that? Because he hasn't been testing himself. He's been sitting out. He's been on the sidelines. He's been working out in the gym. I know that for a fact. He's been keeping his hand on it. He's been sharpening his skill set. And good for him. God bless him. But until you're in a real environment, the gym doesn't mean shit. The gym doesn't mean anything. So that is a false statement. He's got nothing to back that up. It isn't tried and tested. It isn't proven. It's all bullshit. It's all theory. It's a different thing underneath the spotlight. So for him to say that is kind of surprising. But the Michael Bisping that's here today would have, of course, destroyed the Michael Bisping from 2006. That goes without saying.
And we could also, it's not even just a theory, whereas George is kind of saying like, oh, in theory, I can destroy the George from 3 years ago. You can literally look at tape because you've been active and just been fighting for the past 11 years, and you get to look at the improvement and just kind of look at the two different guys. Kind of an interesting thing. I did put a Twitter poll out just because I always go to the fans. I like to keep the fans invested. So I said, who's going to win the fight, Georges St-Pierre or Michael Bisping? And out of all the votes I got, 54% says Michael Bisping, 43% says Georges St-Pierre, 3% say it's going to be a draw. So you're favored, but you are not favored by the Vegas odds, which is kind of crazy to me. Slight underdog.
Yeah, no, I'm always I'm very, very rarely the favorite at the bookies. I don't know why that is, and it's the same reason why GSP thinks he can beat me. For some reason, I don't seem to get the credit I deserve. I think throughout my fighting history, I've only been the favorite, a handful of times, and I've had, a lot of fights. But yeah, it's nice to know that some people think I'll win. I certainly feel like I'll win. I certainly think that George really is, he's kind of in a tough position. He's been away for a long time. It'll be close to 4 years when the fight happened. And for him, the psychological effects of that. I've been fighting the best guys in the world consistently. He's been away. He's coming back. It's a big spotlight. There's a lot of pressure there. Of course, there's pressure on me as well. But as I say, I've been used to that. I've been maintaining that pressure. So George is he's coming back, and how's he going to deal with that? Well, I'll tell you how he's going to deal with it. He'll deal with that a lot better than most people would, because he's Georges St-Pierre, because he's been there a lot of times before. But still, there's still going to be those psychological demons. And there's a reason why he stepped away from the sport. There's a reason why. And maybe he wasn't enjoying it too much. I don't think George is a real fighter. I think he's an athlete. He's an athlete and he's a martial artist. I don't think he's a fighter. And that's why he stepped away from the sport.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think is more important, being a strong athlete and martial artist, or being a fighter?
No, you got to. Well, you need a combination of it all.
Yeah.
Of course, not having any martial arts or athletic ability, but having the heart of a fighter is only going to get you so far, because you just get smashed. But if you got to combine those things, you got to be athletic, of course. You got to have the technique of a martial arts, but you got to have that willpower and that heart of a fighter and a champion. And of course, he's got that to a certain degree, but there's a reason why he stepped away. He's saying because of steroids. I'm stepping away because of steroids until they bring another testing. Well, unfortunately, that was the only platform that we have. I knew that. I knew people were taking steroids, but quitting was never an option, and joining them was never an option, while still continue to fight. So I think there is an element of truth to what Dana White said. He said he doesn't think his heart's in it. But I don't think it was. That's why he stepped away. And now he's bored. He wants the limelight again. He wants the attention. He wants to be around the circus. Of course, there's a payday there as well. And again, he's looking at me, and he thinks he's going to walk in off his big hiatus, be the middleweight champ, make history, and look like a god. Well, unfortunately, that ain't going to happen.
The Countdown with Michael Bisping and Luis J. Gomez. Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on your home for mixed martial arts. SiriusXM Rush 93 and the SiriusXM app.
So, first of all, let's start off with that. Michael Bisping, you and him, obviously you guys are very cool. You guys do the Fox broadcast together. He's so complimentary of you as a fighter and as a person. But, you guys fought back in the day. It was in New Jersey. I was there in the crowd as a young fan watching this fight. Mike, we were just talking about the fight before you got on here. Do you have the clip of what Mike said? Mike, because I want to tell me if this is an accurate assessment of why you won the fight. Because this is Mike's side of the story. Go ahead.
Rashad got me. It was a close fight. It was super close. But even when I watched that fight back, Rashad got the third round. Because back in those days, it was only 3-round main events. And he won the first round. I won the second round. And he got a takedown right at the end of the third round. I remember, the last 10 seconds, they do the bang. And I was like, okay, well, screw this. Let's just go toe to toe for this last 10 seconds, and let's see what happens. And he dives in and grabs hold of my leg. And I'm like, no, what are you doing? You got 10 seconds. and he gets the takedown because that third round was very, very close. But that takedown sealed, it stole him that round. So anyway, Rashad won that, fair and square, so God bless him. But it was close.
What do you think about that? Was it that last takedown in 10 seconds? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Mike gave a pretty good assessment of the fight. That fight was one of my hardest fights, and mostly because going into that fight, I knew Michael was tough, but he just didn't seem as tough as he really was, and he was just like one of those guys that you watch on film and you watch him compete on TV, and he's just like he's pretty. You can see he's tough, and he's got some decent skill, but you didn't see anything that was just like that was next level, like that was going to blow you away. So when I got into the cage with them after the first round, I was doing my game plan, taking them down, but just the scrambling, holding them down, his constant movement, his stand up, all these little things that I didn't really pick up on when I watched him on film, they were just like glaring at me when the fight actually happened, and it was hard. And I remember going back after the first round, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. And Greg was like, come on, you're in there. I'm like, Coach, I can't breathe. I'm like, I can't breathe. He won't stop moving. And it was just like one of those things. I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know. This is tougher than not imagine it's going to be.
The Countdown with Michael Bisping and Luis J. Gomez. Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on your home for mixed martial arts. SiriusXM Rush 93 and the SiriusXM.